like that weird wart on your ass, I'm back again. Hey guys, ThoughtlessVirus here with my third part to getting started in role-playing games. I was going to do this as two separate parts, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it as one big part. This is the guide to finding and dealing with players. First, we'll talk about finding players. So, how do you find players? You know, I'm the only guy in my... I want to play D&D, but I'm the only guy in town that plays. Probably not. I can guarantee you that if your town has, you know, a reasonable size, like 20, 30,000 people, that, probably even 5,000 people, there's at least some other guy somewhere in that town that wants to play. Now, I don't recommend knocking on every door. Do you want to play D&D? Do you want to play D&D? No, just no. I can honestly say I've never had to deal with that, but I never want to. So you have several options. The first is if you have a game store in your town. They probably have a bulletin board. You can post right on that bulletin board, you know, hey, I'm a new DM looking for newer players, or hey, I'm, you know, a very advanced DM and I'm willing to teach new players, or I don't want new players, I'd rather have more advanced players, or, you know, stuff like that. If you don't have a game store in town, I mean, if you have one nearby, a lot of like our nearest game store from where I'm at is about 20 to 30 minutes away. I could post on that bulletin board and find players in my area. There's also websites online like Nearby Gamers is one of them. You can search for Nearby Gamers, all one word. In fact, let me bring up my guide here. What other? I have several websites bookmarked for that, in fact. There's Nearby Gamers. I thought I did. Gamers Seeking Gamers is another one based off of EN World. Well, those are the two I use most. Yeah, those are the two I'll give you. Is Gamers Seeking Gamers and Nearby Gamers. One there? No, that's not it. Okay, so yep, those are the two I recommend. Either Gamers Seeking Gamers or Nearby Gamers. I actually, in fact, just found a player for my D&D group using Nearby Gamers. Actually, that's been a while now. God, we've been playing for almost a year. Sorry, I digress. So those are options as well. The third is there are meetup groups, such as for my area, the Minneapolis Role-Playing Gamers Meetup Group. Long name. But they meet once a month. And you can always go there and talk to people and be like, hey, I'm trying to get a game started at my house. You know, and I'm sure you'll find players there. You know, I'm looking for newer players who haven't really played a lot, but are kind of here because they want to learn how to play and they want to play. Or, hey, I've been playing a lot and my group just, you know, 2 of them moved out to different states and now our group fell apart and I'm looking to start a new group. You know, stuff like that. So, I mean, there are options out there for finding players. You can also do online gaming. You can use things like Skype and like virtual tabletop software, which you can Google that, virtual tabletop software for role-playing games. There's quite a few of them out there. The one I usually use is MapTool, but there are others as well which are pretty good. Such as, let's see, what did I used to use? WebRPG, which is now shut down. OpenRPG, they're okay. They're not great, but they're not bad. What's the new one that I saw? Battlegrounds. That one's not too bad. But yeah, just search virtual tabletop software for RPGs. You'll find quite a few of them. And their message boards usually have a section for looking for players, or looking for games if you're a player. Now, so you found players, you got your game going, but you're having problems. And this is how you deal with problem players and problem characters, because they're two different things. Here's the difference. First of all, we're going to define these terms. A character is someone in the game that is being played. For example, my wizard Totharius is my character. but I'm the player. So if I say player, that's the person with the dice in hand. A character is the person on the sheet. It's the miniature on the board, it's the stats on the sheet. So, first we're going to deal with problem characters. And there are three major characters, I'm looking at my notes wrong here. 3 major characters to deal with. The first is inconsistent characters. Now, by inconsistent characters, I mean characters who are inconsistent with the game you're playing. For example, let's say you have a game you're playing Call of Cthulhu, which is a very serious, dark, gritty game. And you have a guy who is just acting like an idiot. And I don't mean acting like an idiot like he doesn't know what he's doing. More like acting like an idiot like he's the guy at the bar. He's the guy who goes, like, when you go to the bar, he's the drunk guy that always gets thrown out for, being too loud and rowdy and obnoxious. He's the guy in D&D who's going to start fights in a bar just for the sake of starting fights. He's going to be the one who, when you go in and, when you're playing Call of Cthulhu, it's a zombie. Well, I'm just going to rush up and beat his ass with a fucking bat. It's Call of Cthulhu. You can't really do that. That zombie's going to tear him apart. Part of this is on the DM, which is like, if he's running off Lone Cowboy and Call of Cthulhu trying to bash a zombie's head in with a bat, he's going to get killed very quickly. And either he'll learn, I can't really do that, or he'll make a revenge character, which is a character whose sole purpose in the game is to get revenge for the character the DM just killed. And that's how it can be handled by the DM. But you also have the situation that can't really be handled by the DM, where the character is just totally... He's inconsistent for the opposite reasons. He's not the lone cowboy. He's not, he's not the annoying drunk. He's totally passive, says nothing, just kind of sits back. He does his stuff when it's his turn, but offers zero input to anything. And that's one, if you're having that kind of a player, that one has to more be dealt with by the players, because the GM can't really say, hey, why aren't you interacting? Because there could be any number of reasons. Maybe he just feels he has nothing to say, or maybe he feels like, what he has to contribute isn't helpful, or something like that. That's possible. He could also just be shy, or kind of introverted. It's fine, too. That one I find, just talk to him. The DM can do this too. Just talk to the player. That one's more player, though. Usually you don't have a character like that. For the most part, characters who are completely inconsistent with your game style will not last long. Either they'll get killed very quickly, or they'll just simply, the player will drop out very quickly, because it's not their style. That's one that will usually reconcile itself pretty quickly. The next one is one that will not, which is characters who are in direct conflict with other characters. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a paladin in your group, and then you have this guy who plays an assassin. Well, if the assassin kills someone blatantly, the paladin's going to be like, hey, that shit ain't cool, stab, stab. And that can create for interesting group dynamics, but by the same token, it can exist, but it's very, very difficult. So what you want to do, in this kind of a situation, the best thing to do is either let the players duke it out. If you have mature players and they end up duking it out and someone dies, the player who dies is going to be like, well, crap, I guess I'll just make a new character that's not in direct conflict with this character. Now, that's good. More likely than not, though, you're going to have a player who's like, well, he just killed my character. Well, I'm going to make a character that can kill his character. I'll show him. Well, what's going to stop him from doing that when you kill his character? And it just devolves into this character versus character combat. Every time someone encounters a new person, it's like, oh, that guy's an assassin. He needs to die. And you go after him. And then the assassin gets killed. And then the assassin makes a new character. Oh, that guy's a paladin. He needs to die. And then they'll go after the paladin. Then the paladin dies, and he makes a new character as a wizard. And he's like, oh, that guy's a fighter. I hate fighters. And it boils down it just ends in this giant, endless conflict. When you have that situation, talk to the players. Say, hey, are you guys going to be, okay to play together? Because clearly your paladin doesn't like his assassin. Clearly your assassin has a problem with his paladin because his paladin, hates your assassin. And that's, again, if they're mature enough that they can, discuss the issue, or if they can deal with it in-game, all the better. That one's harder to deal with without literally just saying, hey, you can't play that kind of character here. Because, otherwise you're gonna have an issue where, well, I wanted to play an assassin. Well, my game doesn't allow assassins because you have to be evil to be an assassin, and you can't be evil in this game. I don't let players be evil, or, whatever. That's another way to deal with it, is to simply, when that guy brings his assassin to the table, you're like, no assassin, no evil, nothing. Even better is to make that clear right from the get-go. You also have the issue of prisoners will cause that issue as well. Because you'll have 3 or 4 different players who all have a different solution to dealing with a prisoner. Some players will be like, yeah, just kill him, whatever. That way he can't fuck with us anymore. Others will be like, no, we have to bring him to justice. Usually the paladin will say that. Other players will be like, we can't kill him, but I don't want to sit here and drag him around in chains for the next 3 days while we drag his ass back to town. So let's just, throw him outside, let him go, whatever. And, you start having these conflicts between characters because everyone thinks their solution is best and no one wants to compromise. My recommendation, roll a die. If players are having that much of an issue dealing with, the prisoner dilemma, have them say, you know what? Each group picks a spokesperson. Each group, or each opposing viewpoint picks a person. You all roll a d20. All those people roll a d20. Highest number wins. That's all there is to it. That's actually a reasonable way to handle it, because then your players are like, that's fair. No one has an advantage. No point of view then has an advantage over any other. As long as they're willing to abide by that dice roll, that's fine. And you can actually reward players for thinking this way. For example, let's say you capture an orc. Fight's over, one orc is left, and he's begging for mercy. He's like, I'll tell you where to get this ancient artifact if you let me go, or if you don't kill me. So then you're like, oh, now we know. Well, now he's a prisoner. Now what do we do with him? Some players are like, well, let's take him back for justice, and he's the guy who ends up winning this, argument between the players. Well, now they're dragging him around. Have the orc yell out randomly. If you want to try and discourage players from taking prisoners, discourage him from taking prisoners. Have him yell out every time they're getting ready to open a door or something, to alert every other orc in the next room. Hey, there's adventurers coming. Get ready. Completely ruin their ability to make surprises. They'll quickly decide that, maybe this orc prisoner isn't really worth it. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we'll just kill him. Or they'll let him go. Okay, well, let's say you kill him. Or let's say the players decide to kill him. And you don't want him to kill him. How do you punish that? Have him come up to this room. Door is barred from the other side. Very, very, very difficult to push open. What's the password? Well, if we had an orc prisoner, he could tell us the password. Shit. Or if they let him go, and you don't want him to let him go. Have him run off, go get his friends, and come back. Now all of a sudden they're like, well, if we hadn't let him go, he wouldn't have done that. We should have just killed him. Or we should have just dragged him around. I mean, you can punish their choices without it being unfair, no matter what they do. And you can guide them like that. Granted, you don't want to do that all the time, because if you punish every one of those choices, they're just going to stop making those kind of choices at all. Then it literally becomes a game of chance. What does the DM want us to do with this prisoner? Well, we got a 1 in 3 shot, and all you're going to do is upset your players. Sometimes they'll kill him, just let him kill him. Sometimes they'll drag him around in chains and gag him up so he can't make noise. Just let him. Sometimes they'll let him go and, maybe he won't bring his friend. Maybe he'll just run away. Or maybe even possibly, if you want them to do that, he'll run away. And then, 3-4 months down the road, they're having a problem with another group of orcs. And this orc is like, hey, I can help you with that. Since you were so kind to me, I shall be kind to you. So, you come across that issue. And you really just have to handle it based on what you're trying to get your players to do. The last kind of character you really have to deal with is the overpowered character. And there's a lot of different kinds of overpowered characters. There's overpowered style of character. There's overpowered because the GM gave the wrong kind of treasure or too much experience or whatever kind of character. And there's the overpowered character who literally just min-maxed the shit out of their character sheet so much that they're just that good now. And we'll go through each of these. We'll start with the min-maxed character. The min-maxed character is actually very, very, very easy to deal with, because I can guarantee you that min-maxed character is good at one thing. Whatever that thing is, they're good at it. Whether it's, I have a plus 28 to hide skill, so no one can ever see me. That's true. Or, I hit like a motherfucking Mack truck. So in combat, I just rip shit up. Cool. One of my favorite examples that I do a lot, because I'm a big fan of this, is the Trip Fighter in 3.5. At first level, you can build a fighter that literally any melee character can't get near, because of the fact that you take improved trip, combat reflexes. Yeah, improved trip and combat reflexes. And you take a reach weapon. So if they try and get next to you, you get an attack of opportunity, you trip them. Well, with you use your attack of opportunity to trip them. When they get tripped, you use improved trip to make an attack against them. Well, now they have to stand up for their other half action. Well, now it's my turn. I'll take a 5-foot step back. Loop complete. They have to close the distance. I'll back up. I'll withdraw. Loop complete. Now they have to close the distance with you again. And now you can trip them again. And by tripping them, you can make another attack against them. And then they have to get up. And then you can withdraw again. And it repeats. That's one of my favorite things to do if I want to make a character like that. Those kind of situations are actually quite easy to deal with. Put them in a situation where their strength does them no good. Oh, you're a trip fighter? Well, guess what? All these guys have bows. Fuck. Oh, you're great at talking? You're great at hiding? You've got a plus 23,000 to your hide skill? This guy has a ring of true seeing. Screw Stuff like that. Just come up with a situation that directly destroys their one massive specialty ability that makes them so powerful, and all of a sudden they're like, well, what the fuck do I do now? And if they continue to do it, they'll quickly learn that, hey, this isn't such a good idea, because maybe, just maybe, I'm a little too specialized. So dealing with overpowered min-max characters like that, that's not really a problem. You just have to figure out what they're so good, what makes them so good, and put them up in a situation where that does them no good. Let's see. The next problem is too much loot. Oh, my character got a +5 sword of instant monster slaying. You know what? If you give your party too much loot, 2 words: rust monster. Literally, I think that's why the rust monster was invented. Most people are like, oh, rust monster, it's designed to scare players. Fuck that. Rust monster was designed when your DM gives out the wrong kind of treasure too early. You gave them a suit of armor that makes them nigh invincible at this level. Rust monster. Oh, look, that rust monster ate your armor. Fuck. Oh, look, that rust monster ate your sword. Shit. Or you gave out too much experience. That's one of the harder ones to remedy. The best way to do it: slow down, decrease the amount of experience they gain from that point on, and increase the amount of treasure they gain. And you'll, now, not a lot, but you don't want to increase it a ton, because then you're going to run into the problem of, oh, I gave them too much treasure. But basically what you do is you just kind of speed advance through some of the game. Oh, I gave my characters too much experience, but they don't have enough gear to deal with monsters of their level. Put them up against weaker monsters, give them some better hidden treasures, and then all of a sudden now they're equivalent to this kind of character. You kind of skipped over a little bit, but that's okay. You've got players back on track, balance is restored. Let's see, what was the other kind of overpowered character I was going to discuss? No, I can't remember. I should have wrote it down. Min-maxed. Too much experience. There's another one and I just spaced it. Now I'm going to have to go back through and figure it out and make a different video for it. Or I'll probably remember it halfway through the next one. Yeah. Yep, now I can't remember. Oh, overpowered style, which is like the trip fighter. That was the other one, the overpowered style of character, which is like they're not directly min-maxed insofar as, oh, I put all my best points in, this stuff here, and I'm only good at this, because the trip fighter is still reasonably good in combat in general. So yeah, I mean, that one you deal with in a similar fashion. You want to put them in situations where they're not going to be totally advantageous. Like I said, if it's a trip fighter, throw a few archers at them. That solves that problem. Or if you have a character who's overpowered and they're too powerful for the rest of the group. Well, or they're overpowered to the rest of the group. For example, if you have a character who is, let's say you have a 2-bladed ranger, and you have a trip fighter in your group. Well, if the trip fighter goes up front, he's going to shut down people before the 2-bladed ranger really gets a chance to shine. So the 2-bladed ranger, for the most part, is going to be in this situation where they're like, well, I'm not really doing anything, because the trip fighter's doing it all. And you can remedy that by getting combats where the trip fighter won't have an advantage, but the 2-weapon fighter would, or the 2-weapon ranger would. Those are harder to deal with when you have characters of similar styles, where one is overpowered, one is not. 2 melee fighters are going to compete. That's just how it works. The only exception to that is rogues, because rogues rely on other people's fighting skills to be powerful. So yeah, you want to handle that in a similar way. You want to put them in a situation where their biggest advantage does them no good. And then suddenly you'll have the situation where the fighter's like, well, now I'm going to have to rely on my other party members, I guess. I guess I'm not as powerful as I thought I was. And you don't want to always do that, but it'll almost, if you do it early on in their character style, it's going to force them to spread their skills out a little, their skill set out a little more. It's going to force them to be like, oh, I'm really good at tripping, but what do I do when I encounter a creature that can't be tripped? Well, crap, now I need answers for that stuff too. I guess I'll have to unspecialize a little bit. Be a little more general in my skills. So that's it for the characters. But you also have a problem with players. You have players, the first one we're going to cover is cheating. And it's like, really? Cheating? Cheating is an issue? Yes, it is. You would think it wouldn't be, due to the fact that getting a game together can be kind of difficult. And you don't want to do something that's going to ruin that game, because, what fun is it when you know you're going to win because you cheated, not because you followed the rules and won. You would think it wouldn't be an issue, but it is. You have players who are fudging dice rolls. Oh yeah, that's an 18. Quick pick up the dice. Yeah, well, they're 27. When really they rolled a 2, and they don't really have plus 25 to hit. So, no. Or they'll be like, yeah, I made this character. Yeah, I rolled, 3 18s. No, you didn't. Roll again. Or characters who just, or characters who happen to look behind the DM screen. That happens too. That one's less often, but it can happen. I tell people right away, if they're going to cheat and I find out about it, they're not going to like it. Because I won't kick them out, I'll make them quit. Like I had one game where a player fudged their die roll. They threw a 2 and quick snatched it up and said it was a 20. And I saw the 2. So I'm like, no. It was a 2. I saw the 2, and now you're cheating. I locked their experience. They were level 4. They never got beyond level 4. They're like, oh, that's nothing. I'll get over that just fine. Except I never lifted it. Once the party reached level 6 and this guy was still level 4, he's like, well, when do I gain experience? Dude, you don't. You cheated. You don't gain any more experience. The gods have frozen your experience bar. You don't get to gain experience anymore. You have reached the cap of your character. And he's like, well, that's not fair. Neither is cheating. Like I said, make them quit. Don't. Because if you just throw them out for cheating, they're just going to go find another group and be like, well, I'll just cheat here and I'll get up to where I was before. They'll never know. Except if you make them quit, they're going to want to be like, well, maybe I shouldn't cheat next time. That wasn't cool. The next one I want to cover, player versus player. This is when you have two players, not two characters, who are in conflict with each other. This can happen when you have, like, if they have an argument outside of the game, before the game starts and you don't know about it, and then you sit down, you can see it very quickly. Or if you have... It can also happen from character versus character issues spreading into player versus player issues. For example, the prisoner dilemma. If you have the prisoner dilemma and one of the players is, completely uncooperative in their willingness to to bend or to be flexible, they can start attacking the player. And they'll do it usually subtly. They won't just, jump over a table and punch him in the head. They'll look at him, they'll be going along and, some other question will come up and they'll be like, oh, let's just do what the paladin wants to do. And there'll be lots of snide comments and things like that. For dealing with that, the way I recommend, just pull them aside and say, hey, are you guys, going to have a problem? Are we having a problem here that we need, that, you guys aren't going to be able to, coexist at the gaming table? Because if you say, if you look at them and say, hey, you do need to work this out, well, now you're treating them like children. You can't do that. But if you look at them and say, hey, is there going to be a problem here? Is there some kind of issue here that you guys can't coexist at the gaming table? Because then they're going to be like, well, I guess we could if, or I guess we could, but, and it'll come out, and they can talk about it, and it'll be fine. Or it'll come out, and they won't be able to talk about it, and someone will leave. And that, as much as that sucks, it's fine too, because it will cure the problem. But don't expect the problem to cure itself, because it won't. So yeah, dealing with player versus player issues, just pull them aside and say, hey, if is there going to be a problem? Because if there's a problem, they need to be able to they need someone to bring it up, because neither of them wants to say, hey, I've got a problem with you, or, hey, do you have a problem with me? It's, that guy's just being an asshole to me, so I'm going to be an asshole to him. So it doesn't work. The last thing I'm going to cover is problem DMs. And there are lots of problem DMs. Most of them are handled relatively the same way. But we'll go through the list of the problem DMs. You have problem DMs like DMs who are, I want to say what best way to describe it is dating or seeing one of the players outside of the game. For example, their wife, or their girlfriend, or their fiance, or their husband, or whatever. Their significant other, we'll just say that. And they're giving them special treatment, and it's painfully clear. None of the monsters seem to attack the cleric who happens to be the DM's wife. Or wow, it always seems like that character seems to find all the secret treasure. Or that character seems to get all the extra experience for good role-playing. Yeah. No. That one can be handled actually relatively easy. Talk to your DM. He may not even know he's doing it. He may not even realize it. And if he does realize it, call him out on it. Say, the monster, that character never took damage, never got hit by a trap, found all the secret treasure. We're busting our butts here. This person's breezing through the game, and it's not fair. If the DM doesn't recognize it, they're going to be like, really? Did I? Oh, crap, I did. I'm sorry. And they're going to try and fix it. Problem solved. Now, don't expect them to fix it overnight, but, problem solved. They're going to work. They now know about the problem, and they can work on it. The other one is the DM who knows he's doing it and doesn't care. Your wife over there seemed to get all the secret treasure and never took any damage. None of the monsters ever really attacked her. And she's my wife. That's when you look at the DM and be like, and that's still not fair. And I don't want to play in a game that's not fair to all the players. Why would I want to play in a game that's not fair to me? I mean, a DM like that will quickly realize that if they continue doing that, they're not going to have any players to play with. Usually, when you have that situation, that remedies by either all the players will leave, or the DM's significant other will leave. Something is in my eye and it is driving me crazy. And either of those situations will remedy the problem. Another one is DMs that are ball-bustingly hard. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I can be a rough DM, we'll say. Not unfairly so, I don't think. I mean, the kind of game I run is usually a much more challenging game. I make my players think more than just charge in and hack and slash. But there are DMs who think that, every encounter needs to be absolutely epic and needs to be a massive struggle for survival. Those games, I mean, if you're looking for that kind of game, it's great. But if you go into that kind of game not expecting it, you're going to get meat grindered. You're going to get chewed up and spit out. So what you want, the best way to deal with that is, again, just talk to the DM. Say, hey, is this the kind of game we're running? Is this because, this isn't the kind of game thought we were playing. I thought we were playing, more narrative, story-driven kind of game, not this meat grinder of a game. Let him know that you're, unhappy with the style of game. Again, if he doesn't know he's doing it, now he knows. If he does know he's doing it, and he's doing it intentionally, he'll probably tell you that that's the kind of game I want to run. That's the kind of game I'm running. Tell him. Well, if you ever get tired of DMing, if you ever don't want to DM, I'll DM. It'll be different than your style of game, obviously, but I can DM. You'd be surprised how many problems that will cure if you just tell the DM, well, if you don't want to DM, I can DM. If you ever get tired of DMing and you want to play, I'll DM. Something like that. So that's a very good option too, and that will cure most DM's problems as well. The last kind of problem DM is one you can't fix. And that is the DM who is going to tell their story. And what I mean by that is, okay, if you ever played, what would be a really good one? Like Final Fantasy 13. That game literally insists it's going to tell the story the way it wants to. You're just kind of along for the ride. You can tell because you're going from one corridor to another corridor. Granted, those corridors may have turns or twists or, forks in them, but there is one path from point A to point B, and you must take that path. If you don't take that path, the story doesn't advance. And new DMs will do this a lot because they don't know how to do anything other than that. That one you can tell the DM, hey, this is a very railroad game. I don't feel like I have any choice. I basically have to go from A to B, and that's it. And lower level games will tend to be this way anyway, just because of the fact that your players don't have a lot of ability to affect the world around them as much. But the longer you play a character, the higher level it gets, and the more renown and things like that it gets, and the more you get invested into the world around you, and the more the world gets invested in you, the more effect you should be able to have on that world. So what that means is, if your DM is constantly just what they call railroading you from one adventure hook to the next, and going from point A to point B all the time, there really isn't much you can do short of, just saying, hey, you're just kind of railroading us here. We don't really have any choice. Is this how the game is going to be? And if it is, then why are we playing? Really, you should just write a book then, because then you're telling your story the way you want it told, with the characters acting the way you want them to act. So, I mean, that's one you can't really have any effect on. Either the DM is going to railroad you or he isn't. And like I said, you can bring it up to him, and if he doesn't realize he's doing it, now he does, and he might try and fix it. If he does realize he's doing it, he won't admit to it. Most DMs don't. He'll try to fix it, but within a couple of sessions, it'll go back to the way it was. Or he'll come up to this point where he'll just do a complete 180, and your next time you go to a town, there'll be like 50 different NPCs with quests for you to do, and then you're like, well, what the fuck quest do we go on now? And then he'll get pissed off. Well, you wanted more choice. Here's more choice. Now you're not choosing. So, I mean, that's kind of the thing. So yeah, that's dealing with finding players, and problem DMs, and problem characters. So guys, this has been fun. I will do another video later on advanced DMing tips and advanced player tips. A few things that I've done that I find interesting that you may want to consider doing in your next game. So guys, take it easy.